608 kilometres of time stage, but a total with long links today of 604 kilometres between Neymar and Kiefer. And so to the start of the last long stage of the rally, which the motorcyclists had to take at some 4 o'clock this morning. Another very, very early start. Not exactly bright and early, rather dark and early. And the wind and the sand to be dealt with. The guardian of the dunes looking on as the motorbikes set off across what would be quite a difficult day once again, but the end is within sight. Just 2 more stages after this one. Jimmy Lewis was going well today on the KTM, a stage winner a couple of days ago. Let's listen from him.
Beautiful out here, but it's also a little bit scary. Got a lot of sand kicking up because of a sandstorm, and it makes it a little bit harder to reference things. But one thing is, kids, don't try this at home. I'm a skilled professional, and if you do want to try it, make sure you ask your mom and dad first. Today is the last long stage of the rally, and I'm going really smooth. It's going to be hard for me to make up any time. Whoa, a couple of sharp turns in here. Watch out for the thorns. It goes pretty fast. Speed is not a problem. Actually, it usually goes faster than I care to go. So I don't think you'll be finding me on a twin anytime soon, because even as fast as they go, they're a real handful in the sand and stuff.
A handful in the sand, and that's what some of the others found today, as the dunes got somewhat larger and pretty soft as well. Trouble for one of the Irish riders still in the event. Richard Fair stopped out on the stage today, and that was sad. 56th out of 63 at the end of yesterday's stage, but still hadn't got through to the finish when we got last looked at the results. Adrian Lappin going a bit better though. He was 43rd with the sole remaining CCM at the end of yesterday's stage. And Britain's John Deacon, well, he was 13th fastest today on the stage. Not a bad effort at all, up into 17th place overall, in spite of getting a bit stuck on a couple of occasions himself. Well, we've seen Peter Hansel go through. He had a fall today, in fact, but it didn't cost him too much time, and he still maintains that very, very comfortable lead. Oscar Gallardo still in 2nd place overall. He was only 11th fastest today, and he's only 20 minutes ahead of David Castera now, so he's got to watch out a little bit in case there's a problem in the next day or two. But the fastest man today was this gentleman, Eric Bernard, on his first ever Dakar, although he's done a lot of enduro riding. He's one of France's top enduro riders, in fact. And talking about the stage, just how difficult some of the sand is to deal with. In fact, he's lost his GPS system and ended up following a lot of the other riders along. And he followed Stefan Peter Hansel for quite a part of the rally today, and was very impressed by the way that Peter Hansel dealt with the dunes. Had a bit of a lesson in how to deal with that aspect of African rallying. The 29-year-old from the west of France putting in an excellent performance. In fact, he was only 38th after the first stage of the event, but today he moved himself up into 11th place overall, gradually learning the event and getting faster and faster. Peter Hansel and Castera consulting, taking notes on the next direction to follow. And Eric Bernard referring to Peter Hansel as the professor. just as Alain Prost was referred to as the professor in Formula One, Peter Hansel is very highly regarded, particularly in his navigational skills across the African deserts. And of course, anyone else taking the advantage to follow him if they get the chance. So Peter Hansel and Castera riding together again to protect that precious lead of the Yamaha, although, say precious, it's over 2.5 hours now. But the number 10 bike there, setting the fastest time today in the end, Eric Bernard, because Peter Hansel not rushing the last part of the stage. So an excellent effort from him. Carlos Sotelo, second fastest today, only 36 seconds behind Bernard. Not bad in that long distance of 308 kilometers. The only difference, 36 seconds. And Jean Brucy also going well today, leading in the experimental class. He was third fastest and 10th overall. And Portuguese Paulo Manuel Marques, fourth today, lying in 8th place overall. But of course, an awful lot of the favourites out of the motorbike section. And so we see some slightly different names to perhaps what we would have expected. The names like Arcarons, Magnaldi, Mioni, Danny Laporte, Richard Sankt and Heinz Kinnigadner all out of the event relatively early on, apart from Arcarons, who only went out yesterday. And so to the overall positions, just to let you know that Adrian Lapin did make it through to the finish of today's stage, 38th place. He's moved up a bit. He only finished rebuilding the Rotax engine of his CCM this morning at 1:30 in the morning, and then back on the bike to ride through the stage. But he is still going the sole remaining Irish rider out of the four that started. Welcome back to the Dakar, where some of the top drivers take the opportunity to explain to us how you deal with getting over sand dunes. This is Jean-Pierre Fontenay of the all-dominant Mitsubishi team. And he says, here we are, we're going to explain how we go over a dune. The problem is that if we are not careful, we never quite know what's behind a dune. Of course, as you go up one side, then anything could be the other side. Bruno Sabi and Kenjiro Shinozuka are also helping out. The speed of approach is absolutely vital. Too slow and you get stuck at the top.
Ça c'est l'exemple typique du début, c'est-à-dire que là on n'a pas assez d'élan, donc ce qui se passe c'est qu'on reste à cheval. Like this.
And we've seen that on several occasions.
Et si on a trop d'élan,
but if you go too fast, the front wheels take off and then it tips and you can roll over. As we've also seen on some occasions. So we have to get enough run up to get the front of the car over.
Immediately accelerate.
I think, as Kenjiro said, get on the power straight away.
Place tout de suite pour le virage qui est juste derrière. Je mets du pied gauche.
Bit of left foot braking, says Bruno Sabi, to get the back end out of the car. Slide it around a little bit.
De façon à pouvoir tout de suite faire un contre-appel.
And then a bit of counter steering, and off we go onto the next straight and flat out.
Then we can go.
Évidemment, ça paraît simple comme ça, mais quand on est dedans, c'est jamais simple.
It might look simple, but it's not always that simple. And this is what happened to Jean-Louis Schlesser, as he shows us.
Mais c'est pas possible, putain. C'est le rocher. Merde.
And that was how Schlesser's rally ended, remember, on day 5 of the event. So that's the expert showing us how it should and shouldn't be done. What about the cars section today? Problems for the Works Toyota of Philippe Vonberg. In fact, the other Works Toyota already out of Jean-Jacques Ratet, and they had more problems for Philippe Vonberg this morning. Didn't even make the start, in fact. Yesterday night, everything was going okay. The night was good, and this morning when I woke up, people were standing around my car with sad faces. They said the engine was blown up. One of the mechanics tried my car this morning. That was his job. That's normal. That's what he has to do. And the engine just gave up. I'd rather it happened when I was driving than when he was driving. Well, that's understandable. Poor old Philippe Vonberg out of the Dakar within just a couple of days of finishing, and it wasn't he behind the wheel when the engine blew up. So a little sad for the Frenchman, who's had some good results on the Dakar in the past. He was second for Citroën last year, and in fact finished third in a buggy in 1994. But he's not going to finish this year, and Toyota, with their Works attempt, all over for this year. Some more stunning and yet different scenery as we went through Mauritania on day 14 of the rally. Mitsubishis preparing once again to help one another through the last long stage of the event. 89 cars and trucks took off this morning. This is Anthony Georget in his T1 Nissan. And Georget working his way along this stage. Pretty well, he says not going bad today. We've had a few little problems with the car, a little bit of brakes troubles, but otherwise it's been going really well. Georget lying in 24th place at the end of yesterday's stage. In fact, he was 11th fastest today, so good effort from Anthony Georget, and he's on his 7th Dakar and also has raced in circuit racing in the past as well. Carlos Sousa, the Portuguese driver who's leading in the T1 category, needing a little bit of help to get out of the sand, but still leading in the standard category. And Henri Pescarolo still going well, the 53-year-old veteran of Le Mans sports car racing and of Formula 1, 4 times winner of the Le Mans 24-hour race. 20th fastest today, lying in 30th place overall. Number 238, Bruno Lotellerie in the T1 Pajero, 8th today, 11th place overall, but problems for one of the top drivers, Sponsor 1, Cyril Watanabe, the Thai driver, 8th yesterday, but in trouble today.
Was doing fine, and all of a sudden we just lost the power, you know. So we think it's a clutch problem, but because of it, everything else working normally.
So that's a great shame, and indeed he wasn't in the first set of results that we had through at the end of today. So Cyril Watanabe losing a great deal of time. Let's just hope that he can make it through to the finish. The lead Mitsubishis, as you can see, were finding the navigation a little bit more difficult than they perhaps expected, but no real problems for them. They've got such a major advantage, but it is a superb effort from the Rally Art team once again, all of them driving together to look after one another. But don't forget that this car, the T2 Mitsubishi Pajero, was only thought about at the end of last year's Dakar when Hubert Auriol announced the new rules. They only had it testing for the first time last August, but since then they've really put in a lot of work, 12,000 kilometers of testing before they came onto the Dakar, and the Mitsubishi's far better prepared for the event than any of the other top teams like Toyota or Nissan. Perhaps we'll see the other Japanese manufacturers really getting involved and pushing hard for next year, now that everybody sees that the playing field is a little bit more even than in the days of the T3 prototypes. Going through the checkpoint virtually together there, Hiroshi Masuoka and Yuta Kleinschmidt, who ran together most of the time today. And it was indeed Masuoka who set the fastest time for the first time on the event. He was second place on one of the stages early on in the event, but Masuoka today fastest by just 19 seconds from Yuta Kleinschmidt. Masuoka's driving the long wheelbase version. There it is once again of the Mitsubishi Pajero, again a works car this one. It's about half a meter longer than the other 3 that we've been watching all the way through the event, still powered by a V6 engine, but a little bit less powerful, puts out about 250 brake horsepower. This machine was also tested in the Dubai Rally, just as was the other Pajeros, and this machine finished in 4th place. Masuoka and his co-driver, Andreas Schulz from Germany.
We are very lucky today because 3 Pajero is lose way, so we arrive all together.
So Masuoka delighted with the performance today. This is Bernard Ancio with the Nissan, and Ancio with his co-driver Thierry Jérôme. And Thierry Jérôme is disabled, paralyzed in his legs as a result of a motocross accident some 10 years ago, but that doesn't stop him competing on the event. In fact, he has driven on the event himself. This year he's co-driving, and these two guys getting themselves a little bit stuck. They were in 20th place at the end of yesterday's stage, so going very well in fact, and hoping that somebody would stop to help pull them out of the rather soft sand. Well, the lead Hino of Johan Peter Reif was in too much of a hurry, but Ramon Villa Altimir from Spain in the T1 Pajero, lying in 15th place overall, decided to stop and lend a hand. So Bernard Ancio and Thierry Jérôme were able to get going, but there were more problems today as well for Philippe Alliot, who hadn't made it through to the end of the stage. As we came on air, stuck out in the sand somewhere. And also there was no sign of Dick Partridge, and we haven't had confirmation yet as to whether he's been able to make it through to this part of the rally. Dick Partridge from Ipswich with Keith Parker in their Isuzu Trooper had been going well, quite a long way down the ranking, but they were still going, but they didn't make it through to the end of yesterday's stage according to the ranking that we had. Let's just hope that they missed him out somewhere and that he may still be in it, but we'll try and update you on that if we get any more news. So to the results of today, Masuoka 19 seconds faster than Jutta Kleinschmidt, but for the main front runners, Shinazuka there you can see 5th fastest today, but he gained 5 minutes on Jean-Pierre Fontenay, so that has given Shinazuka a little bit more of an advantage, but they're all playing the team game now. So Shinazuka lining up to be the first Japanese driver to win the Dakar. He's had a great record. He was the first Japanese driver ever to win a World Championship rally. So this really would be a fine way to perhaps finish off his career. Another look at the trucks today, and of course there are 2 parts to the truck event. Some of the trucks are going out for the overall win, for example, the Japanese Hino trucks that are doing so well at the moment, but many of the trucks are there completely in a support role, carrying the spare parts for a team. Now this one is one of Jean-Louis Schlesser's support trucks, which of course is supporting his effort initially in the rally, and since then the car of Jutta Kleinschmidt. The truck is carrying all sorts of spare parts for the Seat-powered buggy, but it's got itself a little bit stuck, and Gustav Brolt, the driver, having to enlist a little bit of assistance to get this heavy machine out of the sand. And when you've got an 10-ton machine, that really does take some removing from the sand. Thankfully, some other trucks around to lend a hand. In the truck race itself, the situation still much the same, with Johan Peter Reif in the number 427 truck still maintaining a very comfortable lead. He doesn't carry any spare parts for any of the deserts of northwest Africa to reach once again the Atlantic coast. Hello from Ben Edwards and welcome to Eurosport's penultimate report on a day that saw no major changes in the overall positions, but still 1 or 2 heartbreaking retirements. Up front, no change for the Mitsubishi Pajeros, which still hold their 1, 2, 3 positions. On the motorbikes, though, a new name fastest once again. Paulo Manuel Marquez from Portugal set the fastest time today, his first stage win on the Dakar. A good result also from Jean Brucy, who was second fastest today and has moved up into 8th place overall. He's also the top man in the experimental class. But in the motorbikes, Stefan Peterhansel still out to match Cyril Neveu's record-breaking 5 wins on the Dakar. Yesterday was all about sand dunes in Mauritania. Some really difficult sand dunes for the teams to negotiate, and it did see problems for 1 or 2 of the competitors, both in the cars and in the motorbike sections. The top motorbike riders tended to stick together yesterday to try and make the navigation a little bit easier, but a good performance from Eric Bernard, who took his fastest time, his first time on the Dakar as well. He's been a little bit afraid of competing on African rallies in the past, in spite of a good background in French enduro riding, and in fact, Eric Bernard, one of Stefan Peterhansel's major rivals in the French Enduro Championships in recent years. The 2 Yamahas of Peterhansel and David Castera stuck together, of course, throughout the day so that Castera could try and cure any problems that Peterhansel might have had throughout the last remaining days of the rally. In the cars, it was Hiroshi Masuoka who set the fastest time in the Mitsubishi Challenger, slightly different, the long wheelbase version of the Mitsubishi Pajero. He loved the dunes, so he thoroughly enjoyed them and would really quite like to have more stages like this on the Dakar. Shinazuka maintained the overall lead, but once again the 3 Mitsubishi stuck very much together, even stopping now and then just to let the engines cool down in these high temperatures to make sure the reliability that they've enjoyed so far lasts all the way back to Dakar. Johan Peter Reif still the leader in the truck section. He was fastest truck on this stage by some 13 minutes, so again extending that advantage that he'd gained early on in the rally. Christian Barbier here, one of the Sonorto support trucks, in 50th place overall, but still a very vital part of the rally, carrying some vital spare parts perhaps for the Mitsubishis leading the event. Having said that, they don't seem to have had many reliability problems all the way through the 2 weeks. Well, that soft sand yesterday in the dunes catching one or two of the competitors out. This is Miran Stanovnik from Slovenia, a Slovenian ski instructor, but he did pretty well just to stay on the bike when the front wheel decided to just disappear into the sand. Frustration so close to the end of the rally. Endless, says the T-shirt. Endless seem the problems for some of the competitors. And this, the girls' team of Joanna Lemos and Karin Dure in their Nissan, lying in 40th place overall, but they were also victims of the sand yesterday and had to spend some time digging themselves out of trouble. One or two of the Japanese drivers, though, decided to take a little bit of sand back home as a memento of their time spent in the deserts here in Africa. Behind the cars, the trucks and the motorbikes that are competing on the event comes the sweeper truck, the camion balai, whose job it is, sadly, to pick up those bikes or cars that don't make it through to the final checkpoint of the day. There's always someone there to pick up the pieces when it does go wrong. And even yesterday, there were still some who couldn't make it through to the end of the stage, and they would end their rally almost within sight of the finish, but having to go home, not finishing the event. This is the number 125 bike of Hiroshi Kobayashi, one of the Japanese riders on the event. He was in 53rd place, but sadly the bike crying enough and out. And another Japanese man in trouble, Akira Asai, on his own, solo driver in the Isuzu Trooper. Well, the problems with an oil leak for the Japanese driver. He's broken his oil filter, and he doesn't want to carry on like this because his engine will break.
I don't want to give up. I want to go Dakar.
But poor Akira Asai, so close to getting to Dakar, really heartbreaking moment. And the drivers of the sweeper truck saying, well, we're going to do whatever we can to help him get to the village. We're not going to leave him alone in the dunes with his car. We'll tow him through. But unfortunately, Asai wasn't able to get the machine fixed. So his solo attempt on the Dakar, and he had been lying in 38th place, not bad at all over. And more problems as well, this time for one of the Irish team riders, Richard Fair.
The box is broken. It's a big disappointment, but it was a great adventure while it was lasting. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. It was wonderful. So maybe another time.
Great to hear Richard Fair still out to come back to the Dakar. The only one of the Irish team who'd had previous experience, but that's all four of them out now, with Adrian Lappin's engine having blown up today, in fact, on the long liaison section. Unbelievably, when he's almost made it to the end, Adrian Lappin also out to join Vinnie Fitzsimmons, Nick Craigie and Richard Fair here. So sad news indeed. But the two British motorbike riders still there, John Deacon in 17th and Ian Graham still there in 31st place. On with today's stage, from Kiefer to St. Louis, from Mauritania back into Senegal. Just 166 kilometers of special stage today. And so the preparations this morning, another bright and early start once again. 58 motorcycles still in the event, trying to make it through these final two stages to the celebrations on the beach of Dakar. Two long, hard weeks in the saddle, almost over now, as the final miles and kilometers to be completed. And fastest today, Paulo Manuel Marquez here. He was 8th overall yesterday, but he put in an excellent effort today. Eric Bernard also going well, the stage winner of yesterday. And we'll go on board with Jean Brucy, the man leading in the experimental class of the motorbikes, top French enduro rider. And he says, I left in 3rd place this morning. I got in front of Eric Bernard, and now I'm chasing Carlos Sotelo. Well, there indeed is the Spaniard, Carlos Sotelo, on the Cagiva, winner of the 7th stage of the event, lying in 12th place overall yesterday. The 31-year-old businessman from Barcelona still going well on the number 19 at the Cagiva. And again behind them, the man who was setting the pace today, Paulo Manuel Marquez, Portuguese bike dealer himself, on his 4th Dakar this year round. He's had one finish, and that was in 1995 when he was riding on a Yamaha. And this year, Marquez, KTM mounted, going extremely well today. Very fast stage today, and you can tell a little bit breathless on the onboard commentary. There were very few big holes or serious corners to deal with, so it was really flat-out stuff. This is Norbert Schilscher from Germany, 2nd in the marathon class at the moment. A man riding with broken ribs, unbelievably, after an accident earlier on in the rally, but he's still going okay, and he should make it to the end now. So the competitor